So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services that we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. Then per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find a layer of understanding related with the time of the restoration of the cities of the Messiah, laid waste for many centuries, plus the autumn feast, and then spring feast mentionings. Then understanding also the governments of this world transitioning themselves. It is very valid understanding. A couple of days ago, the Chinese country already placed in orbit a satellite precisely for the reasons of commerce, or then strictly for trade. So then these enforces the situation regarding then the trade of the end. The report states that this special satellite unit is only for the region of the Pacific, but obviously we understand it goes the entire world. So then as far as we can understand the system, not only a person can do via online, but there is a specific unit only for the handling of the multinational thousands upon thousands of transactions yet coming. Not only the Pacific, so let's make sure we understand. It is then worldwide. So then, based upon these, we find then ourselves transitioning ourselves even further. And many congratulations to the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, very wisely. They are extending then their airport. And then obviously with these new equipment in space, then the time is yet playing in their behalf, because the more they do, the more they upgrade not only the airport but also the ports, then the more they can get ready their subsystem, because the economies of the world, they are obviously waiting for this downloading of the system. So any subsystem on a negative becomes a target of their own destruction. If they log on in the system and they start doing trade, obviously their subsystem in the negative would be a big problem. So let's try then understand the Chinese, they own the entire world. Because any country downloading their system can do instantly investments, they can do purchases, they can make any kind of a transaction. And then if there is not a comprehensive plan for the adjustment of taxation and freighting, then these would render any other subsystem obsolete. So then these days where then we thought Chinese then inferior nation or inferior people, we don't understand the entire area of the economy of the world is simply awaiting for a simple download in their computers. So let's not try then underestimate, because we are living in a country where for so long we have our way. But then since the adventure and the advent of the computer, when it came out and the internet was available, the Chinese, they knew back then the New York Exchange could be done via investment regulated by the computer. So it's very important for our dear country then, never incapable, but truly very bad managed at the moment, where we are then in the very edge of a simple download of a system, and our then entire country's economical system would be rendered obsolete. Some people ask, oh, how can this be? Would this be malicious? No. Try to understand, for instance, what takes place with eBay and PayPal, or then Amazon, your credit card. So you can imagine the simple fact of a giant eBay system plus the fact of you can include the New York Exchange in the same system, and then your PayPal being as the Chinese bank. That's the way it works. It's very simple. And by hurting other people, it's not going to go anywhere, because the equipment is already in the space. And as we are very unaware and we don't study, we think it's not a threat, when truly it is. So our country then is in the hands of the Chinese. When the time comes, a simple download, then our economy is obsoleted. So the point is, what can our government then do? Because this system must become worldwide. So then what we used to know of the economy, it's no longer the same. People are asking for the answers when there is no more answers other than understanding effect of petroleum, energy, electricity, and then upgrading the taxation with freighting at the same time. If these they don't get done very quickly, along with the upgradation of airports and ports, then our system is absolutely obsolete. Because the time is coming where then, during these 36 months, we must then observe then the retailers waning, and then the retail market online then obviously increasing. And bear in mind, there is a specific equipment in space responsible for the thousands upon thousands of transactions yet coming. So if we think we are smart, we should rethink, because a simple download renders our country stuck or seized up. And there are a few problems our nation must yet face, such as Louisiana and also the Gulf Coast. How is the government going to justify the amount of money spent for the removal of the people of those areas? The government can't treat companies and then people not on the same level. They have to treat them at the same level. So people, they have a choice. They can either get the buyouts and move out of the area, or they may stay. Because there is no push forward of a government making it profitable for them both. So it's not wise of our government not having a federal petroleum company, where then the government maintains its regulatory agenda, yet promoting areas of, for instance, refinery, where they can justify then further job development. Should be done also with electricity. So then there are beacons of light from the government then regulating those areas and providing more jobs. Because a simple download, then our country is absolutely obsoleted. And there is no way of halting it, because it is a legal system. You are dealing with an overseas type of a purchasing system from a country where it provides you with a great variety of products, and you can invest your own funding in their own system. So then not only this, but what would be of the savings of the people? Understandably, they will invest their savings, because the word socialist in China makes a reference of seriously doing the work from 8 to 5, or whatever shift a person works at. And we used to know this system. We only exchanged the word socialist in America for seriously working. But then, over the years, we have made other nomenclatures, then criticizing socialism, and then if we evaluate, what goes on was simply the discipline of working properly. So let's make sure then we understand the danger of waiting and waiting and waiting and not being straightforward. A federal-owned petroleum company producing, for instance, the derivatives of petroleum, such as the Brazilian Petrobras, for instance, or other countries, they have their own petroleum company, then they could justify the reason for depopulation. But this government obviously is waiting for the ruining of our economy, so then they take by force. If you are a person living as an ostrich, you don't watch the news, you don't monitor the shortwave radio stations from around the world, you don't know what's going on, you do your work from 8 to 5, you come home, you stick your head in the dirt, and act as and live as then as an ostrich. Then when you hear the truth, don't be defensive, but acquaint yourself with the news from around the world. Then you understand the danger that we are standing at. So then the equipment is already in space, is orbiting the Earth as we speak. When the downloading then becomes available, can you imagine what would be banking, for instance, working with the skeleton crew, not having barely any savings to work with, checkings at the bare minimum? And worst of these, the government can't read what people are doing. What it takes is a single transfer of their funding into the system, and then is obviously a redundant system, where then you don't have to remove your funding from the system any longer. You can leave it there. As long as you are earning and investing and receiving from the same system, you have no reason for transferring it over, except when you purchase. And our government has no answers. Our government is working blindly, not wanting to become aware of it, yet waiting for the system then being ruined, and then they won't take by force. It's going to cause a civil war, because people are not going to give up their properties. So then rather than destroying our country, then we truly should evaluate what it takes to get the petroleum situation under the control, the government involved with expenses and also the production of petroleum, becoming a beacon of light of other companies, regulating them, also with electricity. So then the energy is secured. So then can work in Alaska. The government then sets the agenda over there as they would in North Dakota. Then they can justify people then to move out of Louisiana in the Gulf Coast area for the purposes of refinery and obviously a trading post. There is equipment in the space already orbiting. If you are a person that does not understand a simple download in a giant eBay linked up with a bank, then you are ignorant. You belong in a third world country. That's why our country is becoming a third world country. Because people are not evaluating properly. There are signs and indications everywhere in the world of the direct system, but then the countries are oblivious of it. The faster airports can be then upgraded for whatever cost it takes. Because as long as then governments they come up with a policy of taxation and freighting alongside, then people can have as many digits as they wish with the new system. But then when they purchase, that's where then the governments receive taxes from. So anywhere in the world, any freighting company, when they print out a label with the destination for your country, for instance, if it's US, then US. Every time there is a designant of where the package is going, then is the time of taxation. It's the only way of tracking the system. There is no other way of doing it. Because people are dealing with a foreign system. Thus far, our understanding of economy is related with the domestic policies. But when you download in your computer a legal system where you deal with a foreign way of a monetary system, what can your country do with it? Absolutely nothing. You can't track it, you can investigate, you can't monitor. The only way it can be monitored is by taxing then the freight. And we can't use force because it's a legal system. So let's make sure we understand the simplicity of these and then do what we should be doing. Then upgrading the airports, upgrading then USPS, upgrading the ports, then a federal petroleum company, federal electrical company, serving as guidelines for the other people and the other companies. Because when the system comes, then our government then is shut down. Because there is no other income. So let's evaluate and study what goes on around the world, because the equipment is already in space, providing link anytime, anywhere. If people don't get via ground because of a problem, they can get via the computer in space. There's a computer up there that can beam the signal down to the earth and you can download in your computer. So if you get angry, it's a sign of stupidity. If you don't do anything, then you are incapable. So let's make sure we understand what it means. A simple download renders our government at no use.